Hello and welcome to the Bodmin Chamber of Commerce and Industry podcast from the Cornwall Channel Studios in the heart of Bodmin Moor. My name is Russell Cosway and I'm your host for the show. Today we're talking to people from two educational perspectives and a local business person, an employer who struggles to get the right people with the correct skills and retain them in the area. So if you have any questions on the subject, please do comment wherever you're listening or watching, or go to bodminchamber.co.uk and drop us a line. So around the table with me I have Mark Talbot from Bodmin College, Tom Moran from Truro and Penwith College, and Harriet Filewood from Tanist IT Solutions. Welcome to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So turning to you first, Harriet, as the employer in the room as such, although we all employ people I suppose. Bodmin's obviously got a vast range of different businesses. We've got engineering, we've got food producers, manufacturing, service providers, and traditional commercials, and like yourself, IT service providers. Are there any particular struggles that you're seeing in the skills market? Perhaps actually to start off with, you could tell us what Tanist IT Solutions does.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, Tanist solves business IT conundrums and has done for about 30 years. So, it can be anything from dealing with an office restructure where new staff have been brought in and they want their IT services managed, or it could be Padstow Harbour commissioners wanting to be able to monitor the channel using a webcam off-grid, miles from any form of electricity, and sort of coming up with a technological solution that will solve that. So, we service a range of businesses. It did start predominantly North Cornwall, but now it's across the whole of Cornwall. And it can be anything from a law firm to holiday cottage agency to golf courses. It could be anybody, really.
Well, we have got a diverse set of industries to support down here, haven't we? And especially in the Bodmin area. So what challenges do you experience then with regards to skills in the IT region?
Well, our very current problem is that we are building our web development team, who are actually sort of, we were looking at apprenticeships. So we found an apprentice, and the apprenticeship was going to start in January. So we thought, well, let's get him in sooner so that he can familiarise himself with some of the things that we want him to do. And so we employed him in September on a short-term contract until his apprenticeship started, and that got cancelled the week before Christmas. So we still haven't found another provider for him to move across to. And the reason that we were given by the provider for cancelling the apprenticeship was there just wasn't enough interest in students applying for the course, and it wasn't affordable to run it when it was just him. So that's one, current issue that we're having at the moment.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting one. It probably fits most closely in with the technology links with yourself, Tom, doesn't it? And you're the head of the STEM Skills Centre out of Callywith College, which is a new build, isn't it? Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about that, and then perhaps we could talk about the challenges that the college seeks to overcome in that arena. STEM?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, one of this stems back to, mind the pun, about 12, 18 months ago when, in collaboration with the LEP, the Cornwall LEP, they were looking for shovel-ready projects across the county. And we worked in partnership with the LEP to deliver a shovel-ready project, which had a match contribution from the LEP and from the college to be able to build what we are calling the Ottery STEM Health Centre for Bodmin. So that's about a £7 million build, brand new build, adjacent to the Callywith campus, that will home about 300 to 600 students annually each year. And that ranges through a multitude of different disciplines. in terms of provision, ranging from the IT sector to the digital sector to the engineering, manufacturing, right into the health sector, being a new sector for Truro and Penwith College, having recently developed some strong working partnerships with Royal Cornwall Hospital Trust and the Cornwall Foundation Trust as well. So really, the Bodmin, the Ottery STEM and Health Centre has been born out of demand. We had students travelling from Lifton, as far as Lifton, on a 2-hour journey to Truro campus, which 4 hours travelling each day is just not the right way of accessing education from my point of view. So by building something that is quite accessible for individuals to be able to get to and from, and offering the range of courses that we plan to do, brings real benefit not only for the young person but also the business community, and will hopefully help to open up some of those opportunities that do exist in this area of Cornwall.
Yeah, so did we mention what STEM stands for?
I think STEM, for me, is science, technology, engineering, and math. And I think STEM's been around. It's a buzzword that's been around since I was at school. And I think whenever you ask anybody what STEM really means, they hesitate and not able to tell you. But I think STEM's really has its place. But for me, it's about looking at local industry and really trying to understand where are the labour market challenges, where is the employment opportunities that are sustainable. And a lot of young people have been used to only being able to access the leisure and tourism sector across Cornwall. Having 97%, I think, of our businesses are in that sector. There hasn't been a strong track record previously of long sustainable employment. And I think a lot of the industries in which we talk about have a considerable ageing workforce, and you can talk to any managing director, and that's one of their big headaches now is that they've not had the opportunity or headspace to think about succession planning. The young people are not aware as to those industries, so we not only are we changing the culture, we're having to change real mind shift and mindset of what opportunities are out there. And when you're talking to mum and dads now about the aerospace sector, the space sector, the digital and IT sector, the health sector, they're not conversations that we would normally have with mum and dad. So actually, as having these conversations now are quite scary. For mum and dad, they're massive influences in terms of where their young child is destined to go. I also think that whilst we have strong universities in Cornwall, and we're one of them ourselves, a lot of the young people want to leave Cornwall because they don't necessarily see there being the opportunities in Cornwall, but actually when you talk to managing directors of businesses about that, they do look at you as though, so what do you mean there's no opportunities? So we've really got to convert some of that thinking into actual reality, where we can get these young people, but also people that are looking to reskill. The COVID's given us a real challenge in people having to think about, what, I might have done that since I left school. I really want to think about doing something different now. So we're actually attracting not just the young 16 to 18 year olds, but actually people in the mid 30s, 40s now who are really thinking about what do they want to do for the rest of their career.
We are, so Software Cornwall is one of those initiatives, and actually we have recently offered 2 candidates through Software Cornwall 3-month work placements. The idea being that they have had mature careers elsewhere and they are retraining. And the way it was sold to me, Software Cornwall, they had a doctor, for example, who wanted to retrain. And so
that tells a story, doesn't it?
Yeah, but this doctor is now being involved with the genetic project. There is some genetic project going on, and so there are sort of transferable skills from the sort of industry that they came from and sort of into developing IT software for that specific thing. So Software Cornwall is a great example of that, and we are we're in favour of it, and we are trying to sort of support it.
Interesting. And just final point at this point, Tom, to you is obviously the modern apprenticeships that Harriet mentioned in the first comment is a bit worrying to hear that something's been set up to try and give young people a leg up, which doesn't mean they have to do a degree. Because I think we commented off air was that everyone thinks you've got to go have a degree. You don't. But then faced with a modern apprenticeship, which yes we embrace, there's not enough students coming to it. Is that a problem you're seeing?
Yeah, I think it is a problem we're seeing. But I think being an apprentice myself, 17 years back, an apprenticeship will not work without an employer. No. So as much as the young people aren't coming necessarily through for the apprenticeship, neither are the employers forthcoming with their apprenticeship opportunities as well. And that's how an apprenticeship works. Is that 80% really of the learning is done with the employer, only 20% of that's done in the classroom. And I think you can sit there and say, well, who's to blame for that? And I don't necessarily think anybody's to blame for that. I think what it's about doing is trying to work in collaboration with the sector, with the industry, to come up with initiatives where they feel safe enough to make that decision around taking on a young apprentice. They're not the existing. In a sense of setting it up, funding it, time, the equipment, the resort, all that type of thing has to be taken into consideration. And I think we've still got a nut to crack, so to speak, in some of these industries where it needs to be seen as an access route through to that industry, and not it being about just having a degree.
Okay. So, Mark, I've left you sitting very quietly in the corner from Bodmin College, and Bodmin College is started on a degree course.
Yeah.
Which you're.
Well, we first started off with a photography course. Yeah. I started off as head of art at Bodmin College, and then we set up a photography course in an after-school club initially, some 15 years ago. And we had 10 students start that, and then the next year we had 70 apply. And then we became one of the largest centres for photography GCSE in the country. And I ended up actually writing the OCR GCSE photography for the exam board. And then we moved, obviously those numbers then moved on to A-level. And then we saw at the end of A-level, those students, some of them were going off to university in different locations, some were going off to apprenticeships. Many of our students from Bodmin weren't, and they may have been carers, they may have been social emotional issues that were stopping them with their incredible talent moving forward beyond the end of A-level.
Okay.
So I approached Falmouth University to set up our first degree, and they liked the idea. They visited our centre, and I wrote the degree in 2014. We started in 2015 as an FDA, so a foundation degree.
Okay.
With very much the basis of it client-based work from the outset, so that students weren't just doing a degree for the sake of doing a degree. With that, every project we run was with a local business. We've worked with many Cornwall Council, Gydeline Teas, the NHS, Enjoy Clothing in Truro. We've done lots of those types of projects throughout the years.
Yeah.
And the students' opportunities to do that, a kind of vocational qualification while studying at the degree level, is sort of giving them the opportunity to then go into a career beyond the degree. So many of our students are really successful album cover artists for 250 album artists in America, for example, is one of our students. And other students gone on to work into Anne's Cottage, and we've got a filmmaker that's working working for the church in the town, and working across several filmmaking projects. The size of our course means that we can have a variety of different disciplines. We're quite small and we cover a lot of areas. We've got a drive-in studio, we've got professional filmmaking production, we've also got 3D print farm, and we've got outputs in lots of different media.
Okay.
So we really do see ourselves as kind of like that, an opportunity to create a small-scale civic HE qualification that's symbolically connected to its community, that enables real projects to take place, but also to the benefit of those smaller, perhaps SMEs that are requiring that little bit of creative input to support their progression and support their understand social media content, filmmaking content, photography, design, those areas that are the sorts of areas that we work in.
And in this modern age, where those kind of industries, or that creative industry, is necessary for pretty well every business around, whether they need a brand or whether they need video content or good social media throughput. It's essential. Anybody could take advantage of this.
Yeah, and it's become obviously more and more. I mean, we traditionally, a lot of what we did was perhaps in the graphic design area. But graphic design has become, as a graphic designer, you need to be a web developer, you need to be a filmmaker, you need to be a photographer, you need all of those different skills. And I suppose that's the opportunity we have on our course, to be a smaller course, to offer all those opportunities across the course, and that's backed up by visiting lecturers that are professional filmmakers, some of them BAFTA nominated. We've got professional illustrators, designers that come in on a Wednesday in our visiting lecturer programme to support the progression of those individual students, sit with them individually and go through their work and say, this is the route into the career, this is the opportunities that I can give you beyond this. Or lots of the students work on paid work during the course.
Yeah. So, you bring out an interesting point there with the fact that this also supports those that might struggle to go do a university course. So they can do a university level course in Bodmin.
Yeah.
But also service potentially customers worldwide, to help work with...
Yeah, we've got several students. We've got third years working with Crate Academy,
brilliant.
which is a international website. This year we've got... but it's also... It gives those students the opportunity to... what Tom was speaking about earlier about... those opportunities for real projects to develop that to develop that understanding of work place learning is vital for these students to get the confidence to build beyond their course, so that beyond our course they can go into their workplace. They're from Bodmin. The problem with me when I went to do my degree is I went to do it in a different town. I thought that was a problem when we set up the degree, that these students wouldn't be encouraged to move away to experience those things that you do when you went to another university.
Yes. Yeah.
But I never rode my bike around my town, and so I didn't know the characters within my town. Whereas these guys and girls know the town.
Yeah.
So we're working, the next project we've got on Wednesday, we're starting off is with Bob Max, the old fresher shop in town, part of Into Bodmin. We're working on we're getting the skate community together to create an R&D project around skate culture in Bodmin.
Okay.
Which may feed potentially into the charrette that's coming up in Bodmin.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which we'll be mentioning in a second, no doubt. So, what can business do for education, and I suppose what can education do for business? Harriet, have you got any thoughts on that?
Well, I was just going to go back.
Okay.
Talking about living in your town, growing up in knowing it, and then finding work in it. And the one thing with Cornwall is transport, and young people, find it hard to travel. So all of a sudden, if you're looking for a job as a young person in Cornwall, you can't really afford to travel any more than 20 minutes, half an hour, well, depending on your salary, of course, but, young people start at the bottom, don't they? So it's that's a very good point, being able to find work within your own town, qualified, and being able to support all of the various businesses in their different industries.
Yeah, and we sort of run the degree so that we set the timetable, we allow the timetable to work around that employment as well, as much as we can, so that those students are earning as well as learning.
Yeah.
But they're beginning to earn in the training that we're providing them as well, rather than it be a supplementary job. So they're starting to get into businesses and offer those services that they're learning on their degree.
Yeah. Because I did have a problem years ago with an apprentice who didn't drive, but the business that I was in at the time was very rural.
Yeah.
So it was being able to access the offices of that business. They had to rely on a parent to drive them to and from, and that wasn't always necessarily convenient.
And that can be really detrimental to that individual's career. Because it could be that that's the right stepping stone.
Yeah.
And a lot of the work that we do when we're talking to candidates about the apprenticeship opportunities is the travel and the distance, not as the crow flies, but actually how are you going to get there, and is that sustainable? Because mum and dad aren't going to be there every day, and you can't become reliant upon that as well. And one of the things that we very quickly learned, having our having campus at Bodmin is that the bus situation, isn't ideal. And within the Truro and Penwith campus, we have 90 double-decker buses in and out of that campus every day. So it's one of the things that we've had to learn very much. So is that some of these areas that are more rural than the normal Truro and Penwith side, that we have an obligation to be able to try and get them access to education. I think that's one of the challenges that, as education providers, we all have across Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly.
Yeah.
And I think there's some huge room for improvement. But I think by working with employers that are able to whether that's car share, whether that's offer the incentive, we've got employers that have said, after the first 3 months, then we'll look to subsidise driving lessons, or we'll give you time off to have driving lessons, or there's the cycle to work scheme, but that's only as good as the roads are. And if it's just around the corner, it's not something. We know some of the A and B roads aren't ideal.
You've got to be pretty brave to cycle around some places, haven't you? This is brilliant. From an education perspective, what do you need? So, Bodmin, we've got the advantage actually in Bodmin of being right on the confluence of the A30, A38, close to the A39. We're quite good to service these rural areas and this rural community. But what do you need out of business? I throw that open to you two.
I suppose from my perspective, it's that relationship with the course, knowing about us, I suppose, connecting with us, visiting us. We've got things that we can support businesses with. We've got large format printers. We've got a studio where interviews could take place. Well, not to outdo the Cornwall Channel Studios or anything like that. A relationship with the Cornwall Channel would be pretty good.
What are you doing?
Those connections to give, because the students from the very outset, they have client-based work, which means they have to deliver.
Yes.
And those opportunities are not hard to get hold of in Bodmin. They were initially to start off with, but the connections we made year on year, we've built those up. But we need more of those. We need opportunities. There's student choice, and students that are specialists in 3D design might not be fit to a project that we have. So we try and fit projects next door to projects to enable the diversity of our students' experience and their interests, tailor to the opportunities that we can offer them.
Okay, brilliant. Yep. Tom?
So how does Bodmin College communicate with local business?
So at the moment, that's been done through me calling me. I kind of build the website as well, so it's a smaller scale enterprise than Tom's enterprise, but it's been very much to do with, it's been driven by the way I've been part of the place shaping group and then the town team to support to connect with those businesses. It's difficult to get hold of all businesses as an individual.
So from the business perspective, we were having this conversation before Christmas. Who do we speak to?
Yeah.
Because, of course, we were looking for talent, local talent. It seemed silly that Bodmin and Callywith were almost on our doorstep.
Yep.
But the question was, well, we don't know who we call.
Yep.
So perhaps that's, yes, you're trying to find business, but businesses also don't know, is there a central point? We don't know.
And I suppose that's part of this podcast, isn't it, in some respects?
It's very much the nature of the chamber, really. I mean, what we're trying to do is build a community in Bodmin, a business community in Bodmin that can work together and we'll know these things and we'll have all those connections. We're connected to the town team, we're connected to the place shaping boards and things like that. And that's why we're really keen as the chamber to try and grow the chamber from a business perspective. We've got over about 1,000 limited businesses in the Bodmin arena, and that doesn't include the growing sole entities, non-limited partners. So you're probably looking at 2,000 industries just around Bodmin. Push that out another ring, you're looking at 20,000 industries, and you're only at the coast. Coast isn't that far away, I suppose. So that's what the chamber wants to do, and so we're keen to develop that and have businesses join us, and then we can broker those and make sure that everyone knows the full suite of facilities
and I think
available.
the interesting thing is it's an untapped town in terms of that, and I think it's really interesting as an educational model to develop, quite unique opportunities, or an educational system across all of the colleges that are offered across the businesses to create something that's unique to Bodmin.
Yeah,
because Bodmin's an amazing place.
Yeah.
But it's almost like it's at the beginning of that amazing journey. So it's able to be steered by the chamber, by the colleges, by the businesses, to create something that's.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think we opened Callywith campus, and in the first 2 years the campus had met the minimum requirements that the DFE had set, to a point where we couldn't actually take any more learners on.
Wow.
So it shows that there's people looking for that, education within the North Cornwall area, and I think now having Truro and Penwith College come up to the region to for individuals to access outstanding education, and in areas that we've listened to local LEP. We've listened to the council, we've listened to the communities of Bodmin in Cornwall, and that's why we're looking at things like where we've specifically targeted, the courses for 16 to 18 specifically, about access courses, but about the higher apprenticeship programs as well. So, from your perspective, you will be interested to hear about some of our higher level apprenticeships in the IT digital sector that people who may be attending Bodmin or Callywith College as it stands will be able to have a progression route that's not just about going to university, but also about being able to access some of the higher level apprenticeships that are available, and these are level 4, 5 and 6. So, a lot of, if we look at the health side of things, a lot of our health practitioners or want to be health practitioners were having to go over the border from Bodmin to Plymouth. And sometimes even up to Exeter, whereas they're going to have a complete theatre simulation suite to be able to become a registered nurse in Bodmin, studying at the STEM and Health Centre. And I think that's where, when we start to talk about things like that in this area, that's not being what's happened in the past.
No.
So I think there's a real opportunity for us to shout about some of the things that all educational providers are doing, but also to work in collaboration with local businesses to actually say, look, we're now able to deliver these courses, on the doorstep for Bodmin, understanding Bodmin, and being able to keep people located quite centrally as well, because we have a lot of people come from Bodmin to Truro. And that's because the courses aren't available. So I think by working in collaboration, and continuing to understand the needs of the business world, we can then start to look at the provision and really shape that around what's needed, and that only comes through from collaboration. Some of the things that we've already done within the Bodmin area is we've developed curriculum steering groups, so actually getting employees to appraise the current rather than actually continuing to create the new, because I think there's a lot of initiatives out there about tell me what you want and we'll wave a magic wand. Well, that's not always possible, or never is it feasible. and
how do you find those employers? Because, for example, we haven't been contacted, but we've been around for 30 years. We're a local Bodmin IT business. It would make sense for us to be asked for anything that is related to your hardware, software development courses. So, it's back to that. It's,
I think, I mean, it's got to be a strength in community, isn't it? And so we need to build these bonds stronger, so that and more of us need to get together to make this happen.
And I think where you will find that is through the employee visits. Now we've got a footprint, within the area. And I think it's about managed expectations as well, because there's nothing. I've had many employee visits, where they've said, "You're just too far away," and that'll be a decision not to engage in skills and training just because we're too far away. So that goes back to transport, and there's nothing worse than sat there saying, well, it's only half an hour. Well, it's not half an hour, so we do pride ourselves on being completely honest about it, and I think actually being able to access, a range of different courses, and them continuing to build across educational providers, we will find that that level of engagement will increase, and we want to do employee visits. We want to have joint delivery. So as you've said previously,
and I think in terms of our and also giving us briefs and projects, to work with our students. Connect. Obviously, your question was how you connect, and I think there's obviously there is a good contact the colleges and to ask for connections for your. There's great course. We've got IT practitioners course, which is a fantastic course that's kind of working within the area of your business. And I think if you contact, and I think there's a real willingness from our college to and from the education providers to begin that process of working. I think it's been of incredible benefit to our students in the 25 years I've been there to see them working on those briefs. I know that your industry is not necessarily specifically connected to my particular course, but I know there's a willingness for us to work with you, collaborate, and for you to see those students work on briefs that you've set, so that you can see what they would develop without there being without you paying them initially, or without being the context of.
Yeah. There is one other thing that we haven't broached yet, and that's girls
I'll have Shane
in STEM.
coming in and throwing a mug at me.
Girls in STEM.
Yep.
Because it's trying to bridge that gap, and that is a problem. Encouraging them to take on these subjects.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's two. I've got two personal views to this. I don't know if you don't mind me sharing this. I think one, we try to mould to make that happen. Mm-hmm. But then, secondly, is we're not. We need to change the way in which we promote and the way in which we talk about those opportunities being available. Because I think I was having this conversation with a construction organisation yesterday. Well, actually yesterday, and they were saying, it's not about men, with jeans on and whistling, being a bricklayer. That's not what it's about. It's actually quite a responsible position, quite a responsible industry, and it's actually one of the highest paid industries now in Cornwall, where you can be earning £20-25 an hour. And you see some of these younger female people coming through now, whether that's in a STEM subject or in construction or in hospitality, and they hold the run. If I look at our numbers this year, I've never seen as many females in motor vehicle engineering, and then you look at the IT side of things. It's actually it's now where I think it's the only one of the only sectors that's actually got its own IT network group, where it is just going to be able to showcase what they are doing out there in the industry and the difference that they're making. So I think it's continuing to do something. You're right, sorry.
Don't die on me.
It's continuing to celebrate it and continuing to see it as the norm, rather than make it a big problem, because I think we are gradually getting there, and people are openly talking about the careers and the opportunities. I don't think it's a quick fix.
It's also that connection with work placements or opportunities to visit to see male and female workers within the industry, and I think that's obviously the press, the media is responsible in part for that, and exactly the same as what you were saying is that we are seeing more and more of both genders working in those types of construction, IT.
Yeah, and
I did actually have this subject on my agenda, but then realised that it's massive. On its own, it is subject to its own, and perhaps we should park that one and address it on another event. I'm going to call it to a close there. As I said, Shane will be banging on the doors. We have had Shane also said, pull your finger out and make sure you mention a few people. So it's very difficult, looking at Facebook whilst you're doing a podcast. So I deepest respect to Shane and others that do this. But yeah, thanks very much for listening, all those who join us. I see that Helston Chamber of Commerce is on the line, has been listening, and I've seen Ellie, I think, from Bodmin Life. So hello, Ellie. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Tom, Mark, Harriet, for taking the time out to discuss this subject, which could go on for ages. So thank you very much indeed. We have got a new website for the bodminchamber.co.uk. We are trying to grow the membership because we know there's a need here to create an area, a community that can really make a difference. We've got partner organisations on there. We've got projects that are going on. We've got forthcoming meetings. We've got some events. You've mentioned one already. Which one did we mention? Yeah, you mentioned Charles Campion, the JDP consultants, who's going to do the charrette. They, on the 21st of February at the Westbury Hotel, I would encourage anybody to attend who wants to see Bodmin Town Centre revitalised and how business can take an impact on that. Also on the 21st of March at Callywith College, we're going to get a tour of the new location, the STEM Skills Centre and Skills and Health Centre. Skills Centre, my goodness, that is a mouthful, isn't it? And meet there, and you can meet Tom, and you can meet John Gray, who's the principal of Callywith College. So, you know, if you're out there and you're a business, come and join the chamber, come and get involved, make contact with these guys, and if you can, come along and meet them at different events. We'll be there. And if you'd like any information, go to bodminchamber.co.uk. I thank you once again.
Thank you.
And thanks for listening, everybody. I'm Russell Cosway. This has been a Bodmin Chamber of Commerce and Industry production.